Okay, welcome to Bloom in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. So today, my name's Jennifer Moss, part of the podcast. I guess I am the podcast. We should probably start there. We're talking about container gardening today. So I'm gonna have my sunglasses on and off. We'll start with off because I'm under an umbrella, but we're actually in the back greenhouses. So these are actually my pots. And container gardening always seems to kind of be a mystery to people. And what we wanna do today is kind of demystify it. So I've got west and east exposure, which is important, that is full sun, and then I have shade exposure, which is full shade, and it can get a little bit of western late sun, so I kind of have to factor for that. What we're gonna do today is we are just gonna plant one sun container to just kind of show how I construct it, and then the differences that you can do when you are putting together a container, and go through thriller, filler, spiller, compatibility, and kind of how I construct it. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is make sure you know where it's going and what the exposure is. So are you going into sun? Is it a windy spot? Is it a shady spot? My definition of sun is 6 or more hours. Also, if that sun is from noon to 8 p.m., that is a full sun location, even if it gets shade in the morning, because that matters. It's the hottest part of the day. So when you are kind of going about this, there's two different ways you can construct a container. So it's about on where you're placing it. So is the placement against a house where you want the construction with the thriller, your tall piece, to be at the back of the container, or do you want it in the center of the container and to build out from there, which is more of a traditional container setting. When you're looking at this, you want to kind of factor for plant compatibility. You're not going to put a petunia with a succulent. It's not going to make sense to do that. You're also not going to put a begonia with a petunia in Idaho. You can get away with that in other states, you can't here. So also something to really factor when you're going through containers is, what is your goal? Do you want to enjoy your patio in the morning while you drink coffee and play fetch with the dog like I do? Are you trying to produce food on your patio because you live in an apartment? Are you somebody who likes to putter around and really spend a lot of time in your garden and you have a lot of time for deadheading? Or do you want something that's turnkey ready, drop and go, walk away, and it's beautiful all the time? So you need to think about what your goal is. Me, I don't have a problem deadheading and pinching on the weekends. Also, I have a fertilization schedule that is pretty easy for me. When I pay the mortgage, I go fertilize with a 30-day granular time release. It is just something that I do. It's the first of the month thing for me. I am not good about fertilizing every week, so I kind of set myself up for success by knowing what my availability and resources are, and then what my goals are. I want something that looks pretty all the time, that I'm not gonna have to manage constantly. So those are things that I'm factoring for, and I'm also selecting my plants based on that. I want something that's going to perform constantly. I don't want to pick a trouble child from the very beginning and have to fight it all year. That's not who I am. I don't care that much. That's also exhausting. And it's like, you clean houses for a living. Whose house is dirty? Yours. All right. I grow plants for a living. My house doesn't always look the best because I don't have time. So also, my house ends up being the training ground for a lot of the plants that we test for the next year. So for these ones, we're actually going to plant annuals that I love. I always kind of garden with a theme in mind each season. So last year I did something outside of my comfort zone. I did reds and oranges and yellows and whites. It was beautiful. I don't want to do that again. I want to do purples and blues and pinks and lime greens. And so we're going to kind of play with that. I'm going to go through different color ranges, but we're going to do one pot today, just kind of show you guys how I do this. So first things first, I've actually got this big tall pot. Now this guy's heavy, and it's made out of kind of resin material that's a little bit tough. There is proper drainage in this pot. So if I were to turn this over, there is 6 holes screwed in the bottom of it. When you're purchasing a planter, you need to make sure that proper drainage is in the pot. If it is not, you need to make sure you get drainage in the pot. The next thing I did was I put this much bark in the bottom. Now what that means is at the base of the container, from here down, is bark. That makes it so that the container, when it's being watered, the soil doesn't congeal at the bottom and plug all of the drainage holes. So it's important that you have that set together. Now for camera readiness and being able to do this on a podcast, we want to make sure that this was ready to go. So when I'm looking at this, I've got a diameter of anywhere from 18 to 20 inches. We might have a puppy visit us while we're out here. And what we're gonna do is kind of build our pot. There's two different ways we can do this. We can make it so everything has a lot of space. This is helpful when we only want to spend so much on flowers, or we want to make a lot of bang for our buck. We want to spread out our money. Also, if we have the time to watch it grow, or we can do impact planting. Okay, so today it's the end of April. I want these finished in the greenhouse for about 2 weeks. So we're gonna do a little bit of impact planting. What that means is I'm gonna fill most of the pot and give it a little bit of wiggle room. It's not gonna be like turnkey presentation ready, but it's gonna be dang close. All right. With that, that covers most of what you need. I am picking compatible plants. They all have similar needs. They're all sun. All right, so we're going through a couple of different ones. Hi, Molly. This is our resident golden doodle who's gonna help us plant our pots. We are very dog friendly at Moss Greenhouses. Her new sibling is Onyx, the little black one, that is mine. All right, so you're gonna make a mess with gardening. So this is actually a new salvia that they just came out with. It's called Rockin' Deep Purple, which is part of the Proven Winners brand. And this thing is my thriller. So think of thriller and then filler, and then we're gonna do spillers. So my favorite thing is the spillers. That's my absolute favorite. And a lot of fillers and spillers can be interchangeable, but we're gonna mess with this. What I did is I used this pot to kind of stage what I wanted to do. When you're shopping in the greenhouse, just take in your cart and create kind of a vision in your head and play with stuff. See what you like together, because you're gonna find that sometimes you just, I like this plant, but it's not quite right. You can just grab something else and interchange it in. And so in this pot right here, I've kind of staged what I wanna do. And then we're gonna plant that into here so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm gonna make a big old mess, but that's kind of par for the course here at the greenhouse. And that's why we make it easy to do. So I'm gonna get a bucket so that I can dump soil into. I'm gonna make a hole, because I had all of this soil picked in. So the soil I'm using is actually the SunGrow number 4. We do sell it in big compressed bales up in retail. It is always 10% off on Tuesdays. So it's a great day to get soil. Okay, so you're gonna squeeze the pot and kind of loosen the soil or the roots away from the pot, all right? In this pot, we've got some tags. I don't need those, so we'll set them to the side. Now, you got pretty good roots on this guy, so we're gonna rip these roots apart a little bit. Stimulate the growth. You could rip them off if you want. Doesn't really matter. We'll just throw those on the ground here. Or you can just pinch them and get them all stimulated. So when we do that, I'm gonna set her right down in there. Make sure he's not too deep, but not sitting on top of the soil in any way, shape, or form. And then we just kind of put the soil in around. I know I'm gonna be putting more plants in, so I'm not worried about filling the soil up to here. That's not what you wanna do in this case. All right, so I've got my thriller. This is the main attraction. Now, why I like this salvia is it is gonna continue to bloom, and it's gonna be this really impressive kind of indigo purple. I can actually show you a bloom on this guy over here. And this is just this absolutely gorgeous bloom. And this is hummingbird friendly because they can put their little beak all the way down into it and get the nectar. And you can see how many blooms is on this plant alone. He's chock full. So if you pinch it as it blooms out, it will continue to produce blooms. So I'll just set that guy in there to kind of give you an idea. So I know that it's got a good color range. Now, I want to do my fillers. Now, like I said, I like the spillers the best. But I really liked this white, and this is a Gara Stratosphere white, but it's gonna give me a little bit of height and fill in my pot. I'm not gonna need a lot of it because it's a pretty impressive filler. And so we're actually gonna only use 2. I'm gonna put them right here on the sides, and it's got this nice white pot to contrast off of, which is an off-white. And if you wanna save your tags, it's always a good idea to just kind of nudge those in the front. That way, if you have any problems or something you really love, you still have the information at the end of the season. It's not gonna get in the way of your growth or anything like that. So again, I squeeze the sides of the pot, loosen everything up. Got pretty good roots on it. I'm just gonna stimulate those guys a little bit. And then I'm gonna dig another hole that's as deep enough that I can put the plant all the way down. Then I'll nudge some soil around it, and boom, we're set to go. We're gonna just repeat that on the other side here. Obviously I already have 1 tag, I don't need 2. I'll set that tag to the side. And then I'm gonna squeeze the container off again, stimulate the roots. Let's just tear them off this time. Why not? And then we'll dig down this hole and make sure that we place the plant deep enough in that it's good to go. Now, of course, you can remove, I like to clean as I go so that I'm not making an awful, terrible mess, especially since I'm not always the one that cleans this up. There is going to be casualties. It's okay. This stimulates growth. So all I'm gonna do with this, it'll just go in the trash with everything else. All right, so these are gonna serve as thrillers and, spillers and filler. Did I say that right? Spillers and fillers. So what this is, new introduction, it's the Supertunia Jazzberry. It's this beautiful, almost purple fuchsia. It's gonna contrast really nicely with the salvia that I selected as the thriller. So I'm gonna stick this guy again in the side of the pot. And I've got 2 of these. So squeeze the roots, get it loosened up. And they got nice white roots. These are pretty aggressive, so I'm just gonna kind of pinch into here. And what I'm gonna do is kind of nose it right up here, dig a hole right next to my thriller, and pop it down in there, and then nudge the soil around. I gotta just repeat that on the other side. And as you can see if you're watching the YouTube, we are doing this as a center arrangement. See, I'm going opposite of myself. So I'm nudging it up to the Gara. And if you need to point the plant out a certain direction, that's something to factor for if you wanted to face it a certain direction. But then we're gonna counter it with another Supertunia trailing blue vein. And this is important because it's gonna help bring out the blue in the salvia a little bit. So we'll squeeze that guy. It doesn't have as thicker roots. It's a little bit smaller of a plant. We're actually gonna go right next to the jazzberry in between the other Gara. So again, we're digging a nice big hole, facing the trailing pieces out. And if you find that you've got it, facing the wrong way, just grab the plant and kind of spin it. Just gotta be gentle with it while firm, kind of like raising children, much the same. And, firm, strong hand, right? Without, of course, creating a problem with the neighbors. Okay, so again, I've got another blue, and we're gonna stick that guy in right here. Again, I'm in a greenhouse, I'm making a mess. So I'm gonna grab some soil out, throw it down, plant that guy facing out. Now, I've still got a lot of room in the pot, but not too much room. And I also know that I'm gonna have 2 weeks in the greenhouse with this. So what I'm actually gonna do is put 2 to 3 spillers that are gonna contrast. So what I mean by that is I have a lot of regular green and dark green in this pot. I don't always like that in my containers. So I'm actually gonna lean on an Ipomia, which is also known as sweet potato vine. And we're gonna do the Carolina Bewitched Green with Envy. This is kind of a different one. I haven't grown it before, so I wanna test it out. I put the tag back into the pot so I have it. And I'm taking all my tags out. This one, it's a little bit dried down, which is good. It means it's in a good spot to plant. What I'm gonna do, I'm looking at my pot construction here. I'm actually gonna need 3 because I've got a hole here on one corner. I've got a hole on the side over here and then another corner. So then so what I did was I did pairs and then I'm doing 3 spillers so that I can kind of even out my pot. So I'm gonna put these in. I usually plant in pairs or 3s. Usually with a round pot, I like 3s a little bit better, but with a square pot, I will sometimes do doubles because it's a little bit more balanced. The rule of thumb with most container plantings, granted we're doing a big container, so it's a little bit different, is if it is a 10-inch pot, we actually do half of the diameter in plants. So if it's 10-inch pot, I actually do 4 plants. If it's a 12-inch plant or 12-inch pot, we actually do 6 plants. And so that's kind of our base equation when we're putting together containers at the greenhouse. All right, so I've gotten all 3 Ipomias in. Now you can still see some soil, but I know that this is gonna be in the greenhouse for the next foreseeable 2 to 3 weeks, depending on when I get my act together and get it home. But this thing is gonna fill in really nicely. By the time I take it home, it's gonna be pitching over the sides about 2 to 3 inches and filling the top. You're gonna see which plants are the most dominant, and I'm kind of playing with this jazzberry because it is a part of the Supertunia family. along with this Super Tunia blue veined, because I'm not sure which one's more aggressive. And so I'm gonna test him and use this as a learning experience for me, because I, by using the plants in my own garden, can help a customer guide them through their own patio design. But it took, let's see, I did a little bit complicated one. So I had 1 salvia as my thriller. I had 4 petunias in 2 different colors as my fillers and spillers. I had 2 Gara whites from the Proven Winners line that are also fillers. And then I had 3 Ipomia Green with Envy spillers. So that is my container. It doesn't take a lot of work. It does make a mess, and voila, in 2 to 3 weeks, I'm gonna have something absolutely beautiful. So container gardening is not rocket science. It's not scary. And I also encourage you to kind of have a lot of fun with it. You can have every one of them look different. You can have every one of them match. It really is what lights your soul on fire. Do something that is fun, and also take a chance. And with that, I'm gonna ask you to be bold, because plain is boring. And thanks for watching Bloom in Full Color and listening to us on your favorite platform. Have a wonderful day.